Hey guys, Miss Hardee here. I am going to try to start doing weekly, updates on what we're doing in class and little tutorials so that if you're not there or need a little extra help, hopefully this will do the trick. Also, if your parents need some updating besides the emails and Remind 101 or have questions in regard to what we're doing in D6, here we go. So it is about 1 o'clock in the morning and I decided to try to do this for the first time. So yeah. So our town Act 1, we just finished that. And what is it called? What is it all about? It's about daily life, right? And how does that really relate to the overall theme of the individual versus community? Anybody? Well, we're in the bathroom of my house right now, so besides a ghost, no one is here to help me, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. And so, daily life, the reason why Act 1 is called Daily Life is so that Thornton Wilder can give the readers a glimpse of the normalcy and the repetitiveness of the small town life. When we began to read, we related how Grover's Corners was a lot like New Iberia. You know, they had the train stations, the churches, and even the town was segregated how it is a little bit now. We made a couple jokes about how the people were in each other's business. And one thing I want to make sure that y'all don't hold on to is that that's a main theme. You know, don't forget that theme isn't something that you can describe in one word. Theme is something that carries out throughout a book, a movie, and it is a message that the author, the director, the writer is trying to get through. So it's not something as simple as friendship or love or power. Okay, so in this case, it's not, Thornton Wilder's theme of our town is people in each other's business. No, he had a much bigger point behind showing that people were in each other's business, as you would say. So what was that? Why was Mrs. Soames in all worried about the choir director, Mr. Simpson? Because that was one of the big scandals, right? Mr. Webb, Mrs. Webb, Mrs. Soames, and Mrs. Gibbs were coming back from choir practice, and they were talking about who? Simon Simpson. He's the choir director, and he was a huge alcoholic. Okay, so we kind of discussed about the dynamic of that. What does that have to do with a community, and why was that such a big deal? Well, you know, one of the things that we discussed was that this actually strengthens a community. It can strengthen a community, and it can harm a community. But in the case of a place like Grover's Corners, these people rely on each other so much that they kind of look out for each other. And whenever Thornton Wilder wrote in a character like Simon Simpson, he was doing two things, okay? Let's first talk about characterization. Indirect characterization and direct characterization. As we discussed in class, indirect characterization is when the reader, us, we learn about characters through their dialogue, through their actions and stuff like that. And so we learn through through the indirect characterization all about Simon Simpson. And then direct characterization is when we find out something directly. So we find out about how Joe Crowell died, you know, by going to war. So why does Thornton Wilder talk about Simon Simpson? Well, we believe there's two reasons, right? One of them is because this lends to the basis of the individual versus community. The community is going to come together, and it's going to either separate because of this scandal, or eventually it's going to build up, okay? And then secondly, this also lends to the importance of historical context. context. Now, historical context is what was happening in the world, the real world, when the author was writing the book. In this case, Thornton Wilder was writing Our Town. What are some examples of this in the play? Well, off the top of our head, we can think of three just in the beginning of the book. We just talked about Joe Crow. Well, they talk about Joe Crow as being one of the brightest students coming out of Grover's Corners, correct? He was going to go and become an engineer. But unfortunately, he went to war and he died. And they said, all that education for nothing. So what the classes discussed was that we can deduce or make an inference from all the text that it's quite possible that Wilder was not in favor of the war at the time. Also, they use the stage manager in various ways. One of them is that he breaks the fourth wall. What does breaking the fourth wall mean? Breaking the fourth wall is when during a play, the actor will actually interact with the audience. And this happens quite often in many plays, but in Our Town, Wilder uses it to the advantage for many reasons. But one of them is that during the first act, the woman in the balcony and the lady in the box come and ask questions. And one of them has to do with social drinking, and another one has to do with social injustices in Grover's Corners. You know, what's the relevance of that? Well, we believe that that was Wilder's way of putting in his 2 cents of what was going on in the time as well. Also, within the play, we can notice that Mr. Webb talks about socialism. So all these are examples of historical context. Another thing that is worth noting during Act 1 is the obvious absence of major scenery and props. And we've talked about it over and over again. You know, why? Why did he purposely leave out scenery and props? Well, it is extremely, extremely important to understand that it is because the message behind this play, which it took me a while to get into it, and then once I realized how amazing the message is behind all of this I was really blown away. You don't want to take away from it. So what I tell people is, if you're distracted by all of these big, beautiful props, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, how many amazing productions are there with props and scenery and even, you know, pyrotechnics and everything. But in the case of Our Town and Thornton Wilder, he did it so that the actors could concentrate on the lines, and they held the weight, the pressure on them, and it was a more intimate experience between them and the audience. And so they could paint the picture for the audience, and the audience could have a very, very intimate experience with this play. I suppose lastly for Act 1, it would be, you know, what's really going on here? You know, every day we go through the same routine. I said Act 1 is called Daily Life. Why? What's the point of us seeing the daily life of these people in Grover's Corners? What's the point of this play? You know, who cares about some people in some make-believe town called Grover's Corners? I remember when I first started reading this book, I told another teacher, I cannot read this, and I will not be able to teach these kids about some people on farms with green beans and chickens. Well, do you ever find yourself just going through the motions? You know, we get up every morning, we jump in the shower, we brush our teeth. We don't even sit down to dinner with our family anymore. We take things for granted, and then sometimes we don't even realize what that means, taking things for granted. You know, we take for granted the fact that our car is outside right now, or we take for granted the fact that we can walk every day. You know, we take for granted the fact that our loved ones are alive. So Wilder in the first act shows these families going through the same routine every morning. How he knew some, how he knew some delivering the milk. Dr. Gibbs coming home from Polish Town, he had just delivered the twins. Joe Crowd delivering the paper. The Gibbs and the Webb families are coming down, going to school, but they're wolfing down their breakfast because they don't have time. They need to go. Emily is all worried about her school, but Rebecca is like really upset because she's going to look very ugly in her blue dress. She says she's going to look like a sick turkey. And everyone's arguing over this and over that, and they don't even take the time to stop and take a deep breath and realize, man, these are the moments in life that one day we're really going to miss and cherish. And one particular scene that we discuss is when George and his father have a father-son chat, and it's about how George had been neglecting chopping wood. And all the scenes will make Miss Hardee, really, like, who cares? It's just he needed to man up, or, he got his quarter raise a week and for chores. Well, what we finally got to the core of it is that no matter how much you don't realize it now, one day that chore of chopping wood wouldn't be there anymore. And he was actually going to miss, I know it's hard to believe, that he was going to miss chopping wood for his mom. It wouldn't be there anymore. That opportunity of chopping wood for his mom wouldn't be there anymore. So we talked about, I asked the kids, okay guys, like, how many of you still have chores? And most of them raised their hands. Y'all make them do chores. And I said, what do you hate doing most? And they just started saying, dishes, trash, this and that. And I said, I know it's hard to believe. I know, but Miss Hardee speaks the truth. One day you're going to miss doing that for your mom and dad. And they all just start laughing at me. But it's these little things that Wilder is putting in, laying down the foundation for a much bigger lesson later in the play. So the theme of human transience, which is, basically just the loss of time and human life and stuff like that, taking things for granted, is very much a huge theme in our town. And this is our third time teaching it, and we haven't had a group of kids yet, regardless of how they've done it in any other book or anything that we read earlier, in the semester, who haven't absolutely loved it or taken some kind of valuable lesson from it. So that's what we've read so far. We've also read Mending Wall by Robert Frost, and the kids have done really well making connections between that. We are moving on to Act 2, and that's Love and Marriage, and we get to see Emily and George get married. So that is this week. Also, the film project, Appreciating Beauty All Around Us, will be due next week. I'll be posting another video about that this week. If y'all have any questions, comments, feelings, I like to say that, you can contact me at school or my email, mahardee@iberia.k12.la.us. And I hope this was not too painful. My throat really hurts, and I think I'm about to fall asleep. So I will see y'all in about 5 hours. Bye!